Hey beauties, welcome back to my channel. Today is part 2 of my major fragrance declutter. When I started this process, I had a little over 300 bottles. In part 1, we let go of 24 fragrances, and today we are letting go of an additional 26 bottles. So that does officially bring me to my original goal of decluttering 50 fragrances. And just like in part 1, I think a lot of these picks are going to surprise you. I even surprised myself. No brands are off limits today. It was very cutthroat, but it was necessary. And I'll tell you, this video is very strategically timed because I recently discovered other fragrances that I'm really excited about. Those 10 out of 10 showstoppers that I would absolutely wear. But I just cannot justify adding anything else to my collection until I finish the declutter and get rid of some of the fragrances that have just been collecting dust on the shelves. We're starting with 2 fragrances from Chanel, number 1 de Chanel L'Eau Rouge and Gabrielle Eau de Parfum. Initially, when I started my declutter process, I told myself that the Chanel shelf was totally off limits. I wasn't going to get rid of any of my Chanel fragrances. And the more I thought about it, I really don't have a good reason for that rule. I think maybe it just took me so many years to finally build up my collection to a place where I had all of my favorites. But these are not favorites. In fact, Gabrielle is really just a placeholder. Now, I do need to add a little asterisk because I love the Gabrielle essence, but this is just the original Eau de Parfum, and this was gifted to me. I believe I was still working at one of the Chanel counters years ago when this first launched. It's a beautiful fragrance. It's very bridal. It's a clean floral fragrance, non-offensive. I don't have anything bad to say about it. And that's true for most all of these fragrances. They're not bad. I don't hate it. I would even recommend this as a bridal fragrance, but I would recommend Gabrielle Essence. And when I use this bottle, when I talk about Gabrielle, and it's been a while since I've mentioned it, but I always kind of add that I don't really like this one as much. If you're going to pick up any Gabrielle, go for Gabrielle Essence. The difference is Gabrielle Essence has a little bit more tuberose gardenia. So it's a little bit creamier. You get a little bit more of a smooth, not quite vanilla, but just a creamy white floral scent. Whereas this is just a little bit brighter, a little bit citrusy, and you get a little bit more of the orange blossom, which if you're not careful, and I think it probably depends on your skin chemistry as well as the climate, it can turn a little bit sour on your skin, and that's really my only issue with this. I love this fragrance, and I certainly appreciate it on other people. If you are a Gabrielle lover, I salute you. I'm sure you smell fantastic. It just doesn't smell quite right on me. And in the back of my mind, I always sort of know that this isn't the one that is truly meant for me. And then number 1 de Chanel L'Eau Rouge. This was a very unexpected launch with the number 1 de Chanel skincare line. In fact, I'm pretty sure they have the L'Eau Rouge listed with the rest of the skincare. It's not skincare. It's more of a body mist versus a perfume or a traditional fragrance of the day. But you're not really going to spray this on your face. Definitely more of a body mist type of product, something that you would spritz on as soon as you get out of the shower. It doesn't smell bad at all, very light, fresh floral. It's a nice clean but not soapy smell. Basically smells like all of the Chanel makeup. Any of the beauty products that have that generic Chanel scent, this is the scent. And I've heard so many people request that smell, and people have asked me so many times in YouTube comments, they've said, what is the Chanel fragrance that smells closest to their makeup? And I guess Chanel was listening because they came out with the number 1 de Chanel L'Eau Rouge. I will probably move this upstairs with the rest of my body care products, things that I use directly after I shower. I think it could be a nice bedtime fragrance. The only hope I have to get use out of it and get my money's worth is to spritz it on my pillow before bed. So that's what we're gonna do. Parfums de Marly is another brand that started out untouchable. It feels illegal to be decluttering any of their fragrances, and they do have an incredibly strong range of feminine perfumes, but that doesn't mean that every single one is a 10 out of 10 showstopper. They're not all going to be for everybody. So the 2 that I have decided to declutter, Sudbury and Valaya. And I know I'm gonna ruffle some feathers with this one. The pitchforks will be coming out, but Valaya was a pretty polarizing fragrance, and I just found it to be incredibly disappointing. I have to repeat myself, this is not bad. I do not hate it. I'm sure it smells wonderful on you. Really a pleasant fragrance, and the more I've sprayed it and the more I've tried to wear it and kind of tried to love it, my feelings have changed a little bit. They're maybe a bit more neutral than they were when I first sprayed it, my initial impression. This is perfect for somebody who really likes a musky, clean, sort of clean linen, clean sheets type of scent. That's just not my style, and that's all it is. Now, Sudbury is an oldie goldie. This has been in my collection for a very, very long time. And as I was going through and smelling all of my fragrances, I'm gonna spritz this on the blotter card just to see. This struck me as a little bit sour, and I fear that it might have started to turn a little bit. Yeah, I would have to compare this with a fresh bottle. It's a very pretty, creamy, white floral fragrance. I worry that it's maybe so old that it's gotten to the point where it doesn't really smell the way it's supposed to. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this from my collection. Next, we have two more fragrances from Maison Margiela Replica, Bubble Bath and Matcha Meditation. I really love both of these fragrances as a candle. I've gone through both of these candles. They smell amazing. I would restock them time and time again. They're great for a bathroom, for a bedroom, small spaces. They're just not my style of fragrances to wear on the body. Bubble Bath starts out really beautiful with sort of a almond milky note, but then the dry down, I think it might be sandalwood. There's some sort of woody note in the dry down that I don't really love on my body. Smells very nice and clean. If you like a soapy, clean, fresh out of the bubble bath type of fragrance, you will probably really enjoy this. I wish the way it smelled at the very beginning was how it lasted throughout the day. Then it could possibly be one of my favorites, but that's just not the case. As with all fragrances, they change. Same thing with Matcha Meditation. I love a tea fragrance, and this has this beautiful white chocolate note. It's a little sweet, a little gourmand right away, but the dry down is a little bit too earthy. I don't know if it's the tea or maybe patchouli. There's something in this that just gets a little bit too harsh, almost like tree bark. I went through all of my Kayali fragrances, and it took me a couple days to feel really confident about my decision. I want to say I currently have every single Kayali fragrance. I've said it several times. I really do not want my collection to feel so impersonal. I don't want to feel like I'm walking into a department store or a fragrance boutique when I walk in this room. Every single fragrance behind me should be something that moves me, that I get really excited to wear. And when you collect an entire line of a certain brand, it's just difficult for that to remain the case. The first is Kayali Utopia Vanilla Cocoa 21. This was the very first fragrance from Kayali I ever tried. I purchased this myself, and I remember when I did the initial unboxing, it was a blind buy first impressions video, I wasn't overly impressed. And I did, make a lot of excuses and justifications. I know a lot of these fragrances are intended to be layered, and I kind of thought to myself, well, maybe if I put this with something else, if I were to layer this with, say, the Vanilla 28, I could get wear out of it. But in reality, that just doesn't happen. I don't know about you, but I do not layer my fragrances that often. If I come up with a specific combination and I sort of know from the start that this is the combination or this is the layering duo that I'm going to wear, then yes, I'll continue with that. But I don't sit around thinking of different combinations. I am not like a mad scientist back here, like picking and choosing different fragrances based on the notes. To me, that is a lot more complicated, and I think fragrance should be simple. A lot of these fragrances are masterpieces. They are perfect on their own. And once you start mixing too many things together, I think there are more chances that it's going to go south than you're going to create something really outstanding. So fragrances like this that I sort of know in the back of my head, I wouldn't wear them by themselves. it's really difficult to find a place in my fragrance routine. And then these are considered to be sister fragrances, Eden Juicy Apple 01 and Eden Sparkling Lychee 39. This is a relatively new launch. They're both fruity florals. They're both very pretty. They're just not my style. I think the Eden Sparkling Lychee is maybe a little bit too tart for my tastes. And you know, I didn't really love the Lychee Rose from Nest. I'm starting to think maybe I'm not a huge fan of Lychee. I always thought I loved Lychee because it's also in Delina, but maybe not. Maybe my nose is just a little bit more sensitive to Lychee than I realize. The Eden Juicy Apple is a beautiful apple-forward fragrance, but if I'm looking to smell like a juicy apple for the day, I'm always going to grab the Ellis Brooklyn Apple Love over this one. I really wanted to make it so I could fit all of my Kayali fragrances on one shelf instead of two. And I have to be honest, I was torn between this one. This is the Yum Pistachio Gelato 33 and Invite Only. I think it's Amber 34. The gold bottle. It's kind of a bronze color. And I may actually flip-flop and end up keeping this one and decluttering the Invite Only. I pick up a lot of sweet, creamy, powdery almond. All things that I love in this fragrance. I recently tried the new Vanilla Rock Sugar, and I would say these are probably in the same category, and if I had to choose one, I would maybe lean towards the new vanilla. That's the only reason. I feel like this might be a little bit too repetitive in my collection. There are so many other fragrances that I would wear at the same time as this one. Not that it's bad. For now, I'm going to stick with my decision to declutter this one because I have someone in mind who I know would love this fragrance, so I would much rather gift it to her. During the first round of cuts, I think I went really easy on all of my designer fragrances. For one thing, I could barely smell, but I have a lot of flankers, and there's just a lot of repetition in my designer collection, so I wanted to take a little bit more time, smell them all on the skin, let them dry down, and really make sure that I was choosing the right ones to keep. I'm not against flankers. I love some of them. In fact, some of my favorite launches of 2023 were flankers simply because they were so different from the original, but I don't feel like I need to have 3 or 4 different iterations of the same fragrance. So we're making some big designer cuts here. This is Alien Goddess Intense. So I'm keeping the original Alien Goddess, which is actually my favorite, and then I also was sent the Alien Goddess Supra Floral. I tried both last week. I let them properly dry down on the skin, and the Supra Floral is a little bit more dynamic. It has that really intense bubblegum jasmine scent, which I know some people don't really love, but it's a beautiful fragrance. I think of the two, I would be more likely to wear the Alien Goddess Supra Floral or just the original Alien Goddess versus the Intense version. So I'm going to declutter the Intense. I think the intensity overpowers the coconut note that you really pick up in the original that is so lovely. And I felt the same way about my collection of My Way fragrances. I love Giorgio Armani My Way. I think it is signature scent worthy, just a beautiful classic designer fragrance. However, I don't need 4 of them. So I had already gotten rid of the My Way Floral, and I wasn't sure whether or not I should keep Le Parfum or the Intense. And same thing, this is the Intense version. I'm going to get rid of the Intense and keep Le Parfum, which has the cedar note from the original. It's really beautiful. I feel okay keeping 2 My Way fragrances. I don't want to hold on to 3. 3 is just too many. And when I look at them, visually, it's very pleasing to see all of my My Ways in a row. But then when I'm actually going to choose a fragrance for the day, I think because there are just so many bottles that look the same, that I kind of just disregard all of them and I go for something unique because I want something that feels special. It feels like a one and only. It's hard to see a fragrance as being really special when you have 5 of the exact same thing just side by side. I feel the same way about my Viktor&Rolf fragrance collection. I loved these for a time, for a season. They served me well when I was wearing them, and then I just sort of stopped and I found something else that I love instead. So I decided to keep the original Viktor&Rolf Flower Bomb. I feel like I definitely could not get rid of that. And then I really love the new Tiger Lily. That is probably my favorite flanker, potentially better than the original. So by keeping those 2, I decided to go ahead and declutter Flower Bomb Ruby Orchid and Viktor&Rolf Good Fortune. Going forward, there just wouldn't be an occasion where I would grab either of these over Flower Bomb Tiger Lily. To me, that fragrance is perfection. They did such a beautiful job. It has mango, coconut milk, jasmine, vanilla. The dry down is perfection. It's so perfect for South Beach, for Miami. And if I were to cling on to these, then I wouldn't be able to wear that fragrance as much and get use out of it and truly enjoy it and appreciate it. But see, this is dangerous because I love Ruby Orchid. And for a long time, I was wearing it. I mean, this has a pretty good scent in the bottle. It's dangerous to actually smell these as I talk about them because I'll end up just holding on to everything. No, I'm sticking with my original thought process. It's been a while since I've grabbed this. Of course, that could also have to do with where they're located on the shelves. These were stored on a shelf a little bit lower, further in the back, not easily accessible. So it does make it really hard to then use all of your fragrances. I know some people said that they would just rotate between a fragrance. You know, each week they would try something new and just kind of move down the line. It's a nice idea, but in reality, you're probably just going to grab what's convenient or what's your favorite. I haven't even mentioned either of these fragrances. Well, this one was just sent to me recently. This one I think may or may not have been included in my fragrance collection video. Both were sent to me complimentary. This is the Ralph Lauren Romance Intense, another intense iteration. And then this one is the new Lancome Idole Eau de Toilette. Both of these I knew at first sniff just weren't really my style. And I really love Idole. I have 2 bottles. I think I have 2 bottles, one down here, one upstairs. The Eau de Toilette is just, it's nice. It's a little bit light, a little bit citrusy, soury, floral. I prefer the original. I love just the regular Lancome Idole. Idole Eau de Parfum is perfect as it is. I don't think there was really a need for this. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody out there who will appreciate the Eau de Toilette version over the original. But it's just not me. I knew as soon as I smelled this, and I was curious. It just falls a little bit flat. This, to me, is like the diluted, less special version of Idole. Ralph Lauren Romance is such a classic. I was thrilled when I got the email saying they were going to send me this new intense version to try. As soon as the PR package arrived, I ripped it open, I spritzed it all over the place. And my husband just happened to be home at the same time, so I got his initial reaction as well. And we were both a little bit overpowered by the fragrance. It's just very, very strong. I don't know what note it is, but there is something in here that is almost instantly headache-inducing for me. I wanted to love it, and I feel like I do really like the fragrance. I would have to spray a couple sprays from the other side of the room and then just walk through very lightly, you know, the finest mist, and that's it. I wouldn't be able to just spritz, like do a couple spritzes all over the place. I would choke. I like to do a couple sprays all over and sort of dance around in my fragrances whenever I'm applying. They almost went a little bit too intense with this version. Speaking of fragrances that are too strong, Montal Arabian's Tonka. This was a love for a really long time. Montal fragrances have incredible performance. At least in my experience, all of my Montal fragrances are some of my strongest. And because they are so strong and potent, they often draw a lot of compliments because everyone can smell you. Arabian's Tonka has a delicious, chocolatey, mouth-watering Tonka note. It's a little bit dark and moody, a little bit earthy. It is beast mode in a fragrance. In fact, it's the first fragrance that really comes to mind when people talk about beast mode, performance, something that's going to knock everybody's socks off. It's wow. So you have to really love it, otherwise it's just going to overpower you. Very sensual, very sexy, a little bit gourmand. Again, it sort of makes your mouth water. The problem is, it's not really my fragrance style anymore. I feel like the fragrances that I lean towards, even for a date night, even for an evening out, tend to be a little bit prettier, princessy. I like something on the lighter fairy pixie dust side. I definitely would say this is a unisex fragrance. I'm gonna gift it to my husband, see what he thinks. He might really like it. I think this could be a fragrance that he would get a lot of use out of. It's just not something that I'm ever really grabbing. If I were maybe a little bit younger and I was going clubbing, going out at night, having more wild girls' night outs, then maybe this would be a fragrance that would be in my rotation. It's a little bit too like party showy. I feel the same way about Xerjoff Italica. I know this one is going to ruffle some feathers as well. Initially, I kept this because I got rid of Ouverture years ago. That was another one very, very strong and potent. Definitely more lactonic than the other Xerjoffs in my collection. I never thought I'd come across an almond fragrance that smelled too much like almond. It's so overpowering. It's so overpowering in the nose, overpowering to wear. Again, I like to do a pretty generous spritz with my fragrances. And I find that if there's something that is so heavy that if I spritz it a few times, I find myself coughing or choking, then I usually just steer clear of fragrances like that. I want to be able to spritz with abandon. There's a hint of sweetness here, but I don't think it's overly sweet or overly feminine. I don't know if my husband's going to like this, but I'll run it by him. I'll see what he thinks. I could maybe picture him wearing this in the colder months. Like if we travel somewhere for the holidays or in the few months that it does get colder in Miami, maybe he would wear this. I think that would be perfect. Creed Carmina. This one pains me. I think this one pains me more than probably any other fragrance we've talked about so far. And as I said earlier, no brand is safe. I love Creed fragrances. They are so luxurious. And I know this smells complex and niche and luxury. It is so heavy for my nose. I don't know if maybe I've just developed different sensitivities. My fragrance style, I think, has changed over the years. I've sort of narrowed in or sort of zoned into what I truly love and the fragrances that I'm excited to wear. I wanted to love it more than I do, and I've gone back to it so many times. I have revisited this fragrance time and time again. Initially, I thought maybe it was just the wrong season. Over a year has gone by and I just still can't really appreciate Carmina. I just smell moody, earthy, I don't know if it's woody, maybe patchouli, a little cough syrup right off the top. I don't get any of the cherry, very little floral notes, and it's not worth forcing it. There are so many other Creed fragrances that I am in love with. I can't even take a full deep breath of this fragrance because it just feels so overpowering. Mise en Cire is another luxury niche brand that has some of my all-time favorite fragrances. I hate to include them on this list because I feel like I'm a traitor or I'm somehow cheating on them. But Sweet Praline has been in my collection for a while now, and I think it is just so niche in that I would only wear it for a specific occasion and season that I'm not really able to do it justice, and unfortunately it ends up just sort of sitting. I think Sweet Praline has just sort of gotten lost in the crowd for me. It's a great fall, winter, cozy fragrance. But see, when I'm thinking cozy fall, winter, I'm most likely going to grab Très Cher or For Your Love over Sweet Praline. It's really tough with spicy ambery fragrances. I do really love this category. I appreciate them, but I'm almost never going to grab a fragrance like this because it is so just hot and humid and tropical. We talked about fragrances that are a bit too heavy. These are two fragrances that are maybe a little bit too sweet for me. This is one of my Ariana Grande fragrances. I think this is REM. It doesn't say. It doesn't say anywhere. It's the purple. I want to say this is REM. It's nice. I really am a huge fan of her fragrances. But this one is maybe just a little bit too candy sweet. Yeah, that jasmine, bubblegum, and sugar. That's basically the combination. Bubblegum, jasmine, and sugar. Not bad, but a little bit maybe too youthful, young. Out of the 5 Ariana Grande fragrances in my collection, I would say this one is my least favorite, even though it's still really nice. It's my least likely to wear. In fact, I'm not sure I've ever really grabbed this or worn it out. And Floral Street Wonderland Peony. I don't know why this was sent to me. I just received a box with this fragrance, I think a couple years ago. It's pretty. I love peony, but it's so sweet. It's a little bit like, ooh, makes me wince a little bit. I think this would be the type of fragrance that might give me a headache. There's a fruity note in there that's really nice. Smells a little bit like shampoo, but so, 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 so sweet. And really just takes away from the floral notes. Unless you are brand new here, you know how much I love Sol de Janeiro. But this Sol de Janeiro After Hours, I want to say this maybe was limited edition. They sent this to me when it launched, and I don't think I ever mentioned it or talked about it because I didn't really like this one. And usually they're no-brainers. They're amazing. It has velvety notes of midnight jasmine, black currant, amber woods that wrap around you and linger into the night. Maybe it's the amber woods, which I typically like, but this is the type of fragrance that I think I would stink later on in the day if I wore this. Do you know what I mean? You know, sometimes you wear a fragrance and you just feel like you smell worse after you've been wearing it for a little while. That's kind of how I feel about this fragrance. I just know it would smell terrible on me. It would team up with any body odor and it would just double, triple. And the final 3 fragrances on the chopping block today are all in the Fresh and Clean family. I have Versace Dylan Turquoise and Amazing Grace by Philosophy here. This one I was gifted recently at an event and they even put my name on it. It says Erin Nicole, so I feel kind of bad. I'm not sure who I'm going to be able to gift this to. Maybe my mom will like it. I'm normally not a huge fan of really soapy, musky type of fragrances. It's a beautiful skin scent if you like something that's a little bit light, casual. It could be a perfect everyday running errands type of fragrance. It's just never really been my cup of tea. And then the Dylan Turquoise, I actually really like this for a clean fragrance. I would put this in the same category. Citrusy, clean, a good gym fragrance. And for a while when I first got this, I was loving it and wearing it all the time. I really like the zestiness. It has lemon, but it doesn't smell like cleaning solution. It's a really pretty lemon. I think my relationship with this fragrance has simply run its course. I used it a lot when I first had it. And then my collection grew. I started using other things. I try to rotate between my other clean fragrances. I will do a video soon on my favorite fresh, clean fragrances. I know this is the time that people want something a little bit lighter, clean and fresh. It's not my favorite category. Now, if you love citrusy aquatic fragrances, I would highly recommend trying this. I really wanted to go out with a bang, so we're ending on another controversial note. This is a Maison Francis Kurkdjian fragrance, one of those houses that feels so special. It's almost as if we look at them like they can do no wrong and everything they come out with has to be gold. That's not necessarily the case. 724, I believe, launched last year. Could have been the year before. Very pleasant. It's a pretty fragrance. I believe it was inspired by New York City. It smells like a crisp white button-down shirt, clean linens, clean towels, musky, a little bit soapy. Not my favorite fragrance category. I appreciate it for what it is. For me, this is missing that wow factor that really like captures your attention. It's a bit of a snooze fest. It's very safe on the more conservative side. It would be office appropriate, gym appropriate, anywhere. Anytime and place you could wear this. I think it could be a nice signature scent. If you like a fragrance that just sort of smells soft and clean. When I smell this fragrance, I picture a European man in very slim-fitted clothing. I picture Francis Kurkdjian whenever I smell this. Working mom who's CEO of her own business. Maybe a Pilates mom dropping her kids off at school. So many characters for one scent, and yet it is still boring. And that is all I have to share for today. Between both declutters, I was able to meet my goal of getting rid of 50 fragrances, and it does feel good. I feel so much lighter. And now I can feel good adding new fragrances to my collection that I am excited about and I will be wearing. So that completes today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it and you liked hearing my thoughts on these fragrances. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Leave me your comments, questions down below. As always, I will be linking everything mentioned. Everything on my face will be listed down in the description box for your convenience. And for more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.